Welcome back to another episode of BHAW Radio. We're at episode 54. I'm your host, Brian Rowan. We got a special guest host tonight, Coach Joe D'Angelo. Welcome to the show. And tonight we've got the Lucie brothers. We got Jack Lucie. He's a 2018 graduate. Will Lucie, a 2021 fresh graduate. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
And just so the listeners know, this is the first time we've had an episode where the guests have actually requested themselves to be on it. Normally people reach out and they're like, hey, I want to hear so-and-so. Jack reached out and was like, hey, I really want to hear myself on your podcast.
I think you're paraphrasing a little bit, but it was that's pretty close.
No, I'm just teasing. No, this has happened before. People just like, oh, when am I going to get the invite? I think Phil Simpson, he was guest hosting last week with Coach Barbary. He was like, when I reached out to him, he was like, I was wondering when I was going to get the nod. Like, man, I thought I was pretty good on the scale. I'm already wrestling, but yeah, we have to spread the wealth, over time. I'm going to have to do this for the rest of my life. We can't just have all the heavy hitters up front.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, so Joe, you know these guys a lot more than I do. You coached them. Was all 4 years for both of them, or?
No. Well, yeah, actually for Will, all 4 years. Jack, just 1 year, and then
just my first year.
And then I mentored him pretty heavily when he was in AI, and he came back and did his AI year.
Yes, Joe was a very positive influence.
I will say that I taught Jack quite a bit.
He did. I learned a lot from Joe. From your mentors, you learn sometimes what to do, but really from Joe, I learned a lot what not to do. So that was
interesting.
I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
So, little current events. Where are you guys both at? Jack, you graduated a few years ago. Will, just graduated. You guys are wearing the same shirt. I don't know if that was coordinated, but
it was not. It was very random. It was purely coincidental. So I guess I'll go first. I'm a first lieutenant stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana. I'm an executive officer for my cavalry, in my cavalry squadron. So I'm a company level XO, and I've been in the seat for about 2 months now. And I enjoy it. I did my PL time in the same troop or same company. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And then I'm slated to go to maneuver captain's career course in February back at Fort Benning. So my lieutenant days are kind of numbered now.
Thanks. So you're on the exact standard progression, pretty much. Platoon leader for a year, XO for 6 months, boom, hop out, maneuver career course.
Yep. Aside from the AI job after I graduated, it's been pretty standard. Armor officer, for those that don't know. So I went through ABOLC, ARC, the Army Reconnaissance course, and then now I'm doing my, like you said, lieutenant time, and pretty soon I'll be done back to Benning, and then captain, and then who knows what after that.
Now you and Will may end up at Benning around the same time. Is that right?
Well, I'm not going to Benning.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
No.
I thought you guys were going to end up in the same place at some point.
So, I'll get to that. So right now I'm AI for actually the Army men's and women's tennis team, which is kind of funny how that turned out. I got a lot of help from Major Will Simpson getting this job. So he used to work in ODIA, and I kind of signed up to be an AI because I really wanted to do it. But then we had too many guys from the team in my class that wanted to be AIs. And so he kind of just put me on a wait list, and then nobody from the tennis program wanted to be an AI. So they just kind of tossed me in there, and now I got the job. So I'll be here for the whole first semester. And then January 10th, I have my e-bullock date for engineer bullock down at Fort Leonard Wood. So I'm not going to Benning at all.
Oh, gotcha.
After that, I'm going to head to Fort Riley, Kansas for my first duty station. So if Jack can get Kansas or get Fort Riley for his duty station, then we might be together again. But a little bit of a long ways off for him. So we'll see.
Gotcha.
Is that the plan? Do you guys want to be stationed in the same place?
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's the plan. So how it works in the armor branch is if you do your lieutenant time in an infantry brigade or light, like what I am right now, light, like dismounted reconnaissance, then for your command time, they want you to switch and go to an armor brigade, like heavy. So that way, when you head into ILE to become a major, you have experience as both the light and heavy aspect of the armor branch. So you're more well-versed and you become more marketable later on in your career. So for me to go to Fort Riley, Will's going to an ABCT, and that's perfect for me. You know, it's in the Midwest, somewhat close to where we grew up, and then, you know, being able to do heavy command, hopefully in a tank company, is kind of the goal right now.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I'm excited.
It's branch week this week at West Point, right?
Oh yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's talk. That wasn't even part of the plan, but I felt like now we should talk about that. So, how is it? Is it run different than it was before? Or for some reason, I remember being later. I don't remember being this early. Maybe it has. I don't know. I forget. I'm old.
I don't know. I think it's usually about this time, early September, right after ring weekend and stuff like that. I mean, we had ring weekend the weekend before Labor Day, and but it's going on full swing right now. I saw some of the wrestling coaches and guys walking around at branch week. I know they always like to go walk around there. I was taken around to recruit today and saw some of the guys down there. So it's always fun to see all the guys and watch them walk around down there.
Coach Joe, are we allowed to say? Am I allowed to ask what recruit he had? Am I allowed to ask names on here?
That's for tennis. That's not for us. He had a tennis recruit actually.
Oh, you had a tennis recruit.
Yeah. And the answer is no. You cannot talk about it.
Well, we're not really into it West Point, so I mean, I could do it, but you're a coach, so like that.
Yeah, I think it's a gray area we don't need to get into. I don't want to get the tennis team in trouble.
Yeah.
So
I always enjoyed branch week as a kid. Oh, sorry, Brian. Were you gonna go on to something else?
No. Keep going, because I was gonna just.
No, I just thought I always enjoyed branch week as a cadet. All the static displays. You know, you get to see like every piece of equipment that you could possibly like interact with when you get to being a lieutenant PL or whatever. So I thought it was cool. I climbed around like on all the tanks, Bradleys, like all that stuff. So, and the helicopters, like aircraft in there was like obviously that's like the big cool thing that everyone wants to see. So it was cool. I enjoyed it.
This is the first year I have not been in a tank yet. They're being a little bit more strict. Usually I just kind of run the show over there, getting the helicopters, tanks.
Oh.
Coach Joe, do you guys have any like funny videos coming out? I feel like each year you guys do something silly.
We're working on it. Our creative team, which is us coaches and the managers, are working on getting something out. I've sent out a couple like videos for like the ESPN commercials. I sent those out to the group just for like some, try to get some juices flowing.
I saw Chewy's like single leg defense video.
Yeah, I sent that to them as well for to get some things going.
That was like underrated. I don't know if it got a lot of traction back then when it came out originally, but that was
I don't know that
really
it
well
did.
put together.
Yeah.
The funniest part of that video is getting the random cadets to say sprawl. Just random people like say it. They're like, sprawl. I thought that's the funniest part of the video to me.
All right, so let's dive into the Lucie brothers a little bit. Growing up, so you're from Illinois. You grew up on a farm. Word on the street is you guys have farm strength. You guys are really strong. So talk to us about farm life. And apparently you have a really cool dad. Some of the listener questions focused on him being cool, and you guys not really cool. I won't bring that up, but let's dive into Illinois.
So yeah, I'll kind of start. Yeah, we grew up in outside of Basco, Illinois, a tiny little town of 98 people. And like you mentioned before, we have a family farm. It's really just my immediate family, our uncles and our grandparents. And that's really it. That's kind of like where it all started, just our little corner of Illinois. And, our area didn't have wrestling at all until Will and I were in grade school. Like a lot of places over like in Iowa have always had like these historically good, wrestling programs and stuff. So we didn't really have it and weren't introduced to it until, I guess, what most people like would consider later. Like I was in third grade when I started, and then Will was in first grade. So our dad really kind of, he pushed us to give it a try. We didn't really know much about it, but there were some family friends of ours that kind of got us into it. Will, what do you think? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely small when we were growing up, and I think even through high school, it was pretty small in our area and stuff like that. Not terribly great competition. We kind of had to travel a lot growing up to find really good practice partners and good clubs and things of that nature. Although that's, pretty similar to a lot of places where you really have to start traveling around and finding good practice partners and good rooms to start getting better. But yeah, it was definitely unique growing up the way that we did kind of out on the farm like that, because where we were missing out on maybe some good training just in our local programs and stuff like that. It kind of felt like we were always training, right?
Yeah.
Working on the farm is pretty tough.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of tough work, and it did feel like we were always training for wrestling, whether or not we knew it, just working all the time. And but it was really good to grow up that way. I think in retrospect, it just showed us a lot of what the right way to do things is, how to actually work hard and to, I don't know, I guess it was a good way to grow up though. It was pretty cool in retrospect.
It's like Mr. Miyagi type training, but like on a farm.
Yeah, very much.
I remember we would be like in high school, like in the winter, and before like morning conditioning, our dad would like come and wake us up and be like, "Hey, we have calves like in the lot right now. I need you to go up and feed them. I'm busy. I got to go chop wood right now. So you two get on the 4-wheeler in like 15-degree weather, January in Illinois. The trucks, like he's got to use the truck. So we had to get on the 4-wheeler, drive up to the lot, feed calves, and then go back home, get in the other car, and drive to school and conditioning. That was just a whole example of like some of the stuff we had to do. And then the summers, that's the time to like build fence, bale hay, all that like warm weather stuff that we had to do. So that like pretty much every summer of my life, I've worked on the farm. Even now at 26 years old, every time I go back home, Dad has us doing something, which is good. I enjoy it.
Who do you think works the hardest on the farm out of the two of you?
I think I did, because here's why.
Here's
why I'll say that. Because when I was a cadet and COVID all happened, and I got to come home for however many months it was, I was sitting here and doing all my cadet work. I was in Zoom classes and stuff like that. And then when I get done with Zoom classes, I have to go out and go work on the farm. So I think I win that title.
I think that's really kind of an unfair situation, because
I was there.
I did not. Well, now, Will, I think you're jumping the gun a little bit and you're misleading the listeners, which is really, frankly, unethical. So,
I mean, that's like 2 months of your whole childhood. You had to work extra on the farm. I mean,
yeah. Think about it.
Right?
In the grand scheme, Will, that's really not that long. So, I don't know. Let the listeners decide, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty even.
Yeah.
We get this question a lot. We get a lot of questions about, who's the best wrestler, who's this or who's that, and it's kind of, I don't know. It's usually me. I'm just kidding.
You guys are a 2-year difference?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Because you graduated 3 years different because you went to prep school, right?
Right. I went to the prep school.
You guys always around the same size? Like, I remember at West Point, you're right around the same size, but like probably when you're like 10 and 12, maybe you're like a bigger difference.
So I was always bigger growing up. Like I was always almost consistently 2 weight classes above Will growing up, even through, I guess, college. When I was a firstie, he was still a class below me. But now, we're about the same size.
Yeah. So all growing up, like we would hit the same weight classes and stuff. Like in high school, we wrestled pretty much the same weight classes, but he was 2 years older than me. He was always up a couple weight classes from me. So like when we were practicing in the room, he was always bigger than me and stuff like that. So that never really changed until we both got into college and things like that.
Yeah. He caught up to me.
So actually, I don't think I talked to you at all about this, BHAW, but I wrestled at NC State with my little brother. So I had the same advantage that you guys had of having my brother on the team. I know from an older brother's perspective what that's like, but I'm interested to hear from Will. What was it like being on the team with your older brother?
So it was really great for a lot of reasons. I think the biggest thing was that I already knew about the program. I already knew about West Point, especially when I was getting recruited and stuff like that. It was a really good source of information to be able to ask Jack, like, hey, what's this really going to be like? What's college wrestling actually going to be like for me when I get there? And so he was able to answer all my questions, especially when I was being recruited. And once I actually got to the team, it was just cool because I already had, like, my best friend was a senior on the team, right? So I didn't have to, like, just rely on guys in my class or, you know, in the adjacent classes to me for, like, friendship. I always had, like, really good friends. And that's not to say that we're not all friends, like, at every level or in every class, but right immediately once I got on post, then I already had friends who were firsties. And, you know, friends outside of the team, like some of Jack's friends that weren't on the team, like I was pretty cool with. And as a plebe, that's obviously a pretty big deal. Being able to walk around West Point and, like, be friends with other firsties that aren't on your team, like you can definitely get a lot of street cred from that. So that was good. You know, by and large, it was a really good experience. I can say that.
You didn't feel like Jack maybe smeared some of the Lucie name before you even got there?
You know, I did a pretty good job of smearing my own name, I think, in some ways.
I think academically, it's a good thing Will and I were in different majors because academically, I think if they saw his last name pop up on a class list, they'd be like, "Oh no, I don't think I'm ready for another one."
Yeah, it did happen one time. My first year,
Yep.
my MX 400 instructor, I walked into class. I was actually late to class. I went to the wrong classroom on first day of class. And as a senior, how does that happen? Right. But whatever, it did. And so I walked in late to class and I was like, hey, sir, Cadet Lucie reports later or whatever you say. And he was like, oh, you're Lucie. Is your brother Jack Lucie? And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, oh, no, this guy already knows me. He was like, yeah, I had your brother when he was a firstie too. Go ahead, take a seat. And so and that was like maybe the one time when I was like, oh, dang, I probably should have had a different instructor for this class, but he didn't hold it against me too bad.
Wait, was he like a department head? How was he there that long?
So he was a civilian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he was like a permanent instructor here. I don't even know how long he's been instructing here, but yeah, he's been here forever. And so he knew me right away too. He's got a crazy good memory. He was like, oh, I know your brother. He's like, I had him in class too.
So going back,
I did all right in that class. So
yeah.
So going back to your recruiting days, Jack. So you were recruited. Who were the assistant coaches and the head? Heskett was the head coach when you were coming in, right?
Yep. So I was a part of, I guess, the older crew, if you want to call it that. So Joe Heskett was the head coach, and then Paul Young was one of the assistants. Brad Pataki was also one of the assistants. And then the volunteer assistant at the time was Dan Mitchell. He's the one who initially reached out to me. I'll never forget it. It was like in the summertime sometime. And I got this call from this 845 number. And I was like, oh, who is this? Like, New York? Like, I don't know. So like Highland Falls, New York. I don't understand. Like, where is this coming from? And I answered it and I was like, hey, hello. He's like a pretty excited guy. I don't know if you've ever met him, Brian, or been around him at all. He like answers like, hey, Jack, this is Dan Mitchell. I'm volunteer assistant wrestling coach over at Army. And I was just like, I heard that, like the Division I, like I heard once those words left his mouth, I was just like blown away. Like, oh my gosh, like I did not think it would ever come, like getting, I guess, called by a Division I program, like for a high school of 200 kids. Like I had 48 kids in my class coming from 1A Illinois. Like that to me was just like the craziest, call I could have ever gotten. And he explained it a little bit more. And then as the months kind of went on, I got more and more interested in, the United States Military Academy at West Point. I kind of started researching like what it was about, because I didn't know really much about West Point. I grew up like very like Big Ten oriented, of course, like Iowa was like the big thing in the early 2000s. So that's kind of what Will and I grew up on. But then as we got into high school, we got better and better. So then to get to get contacted by a Division I program, I thought was really cool. And then Coach Mitchell was only around for a little bit of my recruiting journey. And then he even went to like Cleveland State, I think. So Coach Young and Coach Pataki really took the head on recruiting me. And just like throughout the whole process, they were really great. Like I still really value like all that whole coaching staff really highly through even now to this day. And I got, recruited by a couple other programs, like a lot of D3 schools here in like Iowa and Illinois. And then I think a couple other like a look, but it was nothing crazy. Like I wasn't like a blue chip recruit or anything. I never like wrestled in Fargo. I never won state, but I think it was just really like awesome to kind of get that experience. And then when I got invited to go on an official visit to West Point, I was like really excited. I've never flown like on an airplane before that moment. Like flying out to West Point, like to New York, was the very first time that I remember flying on an airplane, because we grew up in the Midwest and we just drove everywhere. So I never Will and I like never traveled. So land in New York, get picked up by Pataki. He's this little like bouncing around, like real high energy. Hey Jack, what's up? I'm Coach Pataki. I'm gonna take you to West Point. You ready? My dad was with me. Yeah, he was. Well, that's not exactly how he sounds, but he was just like always, whenever he walked, he would take a few steps and then do a little jump thing. It was really funny. But anyway, so he picks us up. We drive like to West Point, and once we get in the gates, like on post for the first time, I'll learn like seeing like the mountains and all the granite buildings was just like a culture shock. Like I was completely dumbfounded by the whole place. And then, seeing the cadets were like, to me, like in that moment, high school senior, they were all like super squared away, just like walking, like looking in the eyes, like chest up, like confident, like everybody, like I was just like kind of blown away by the whole thing. And then we get to the room, and it was even before like some of the renovations or some of the upgrades that Coach Ward has done. But like I walk in, it's like a Division I wrestling room. Like the guys are like wrestling hard. They're like on the bikes, like going. And this is October of 2014 when this happened. And I was like watching a Division for the first time, and I was just like, again, blown away. All the guys like were wrestling really hard. It's the highest level of wrestling I've like ever seen in real life up to that point. And Coach, it was like let the other coaches like keep going. And then he like walked off the mat and like talked to me like face to face. It was like, hey Jack, I talked to you on the phone a couple times. It's really great to see you. We're really happy that you're here. Like all that. And basically from that moment, I decided like, this is the place for me. Like, this is where I want to go. This is where my home is going to be. And like seeing that wrestling room. So the wrestling room that Will and I grew up with, we had to put the tables up, like the lunch up, and roll the mats out every day because it was the elementary school cafeteria. Mm-hmm. To see a room and like have a room that I could call like mine, that we didn't every day, was like again, I mean, saying it out loud is kind of silly, I guess, but to me, it was like a really big deal at the time.
No, not
so,
like recycled mat tape.
Yeah,
I did the same thing in my middle school. We had to roll the mats out. Not in high school, but my middle school we did.
Yeah,
that was always
had to.
That sucked. So
yeah, it was a huge pain. And so like the recycled mat tape. And then from that moment, like I committed on my visit, and then from there, that was kind of when I took made like my heading towards West Point in 2014, 2015, or 2000. Excuse me, it was October 2013. That's when my visit was.
Yeah. So from my experience was, definitely different. Obviously there's a completely new coaching staff by the time that I was getting recruited. And I think Coach Heskett left right before your plebe year, correct, Jack?
Yeah, so I was like a week out from our day, and I get a call from Coach Heskett, like just assuming it's going to be like a welcome thing. And he was like, "Hey, Jack, I took another job somewhere. It's a great opportunity for my family. So I'm actually stepping down as the Army wrestling coach. Coach Young is going to be the interim head coach for now." And I was just kind of like, heard that news and was like, "Oh, man, that's kind of crazy." Like that was kind of another like kind of shock. Like I didn't realize, you see coaching changes, like coaching turnover every now and then, but then to be like in it was kind of just like kind of like shocking at the moment. But of course I was like all in on West Point. Like I was going to be there. I didn't care like who the coach was. And then, I continued, I guess, trying my continued mission, and, the rest is history. But
So Will, with you, I mean, it was obviously a different, like, coaching staff, different process, but, was it just an assumption that you were going to go to West Point because your older brother was there and you're 2 years apart? Like, when did you commit? When, like, did they have to like roll the red carpet for you, or were you like, I'm going?
Yeah. So I mean, I wasn't actually like super, super committed to going to West Point, like right out of the gate. So right when Jack committed, I was like, that's fantastic for him. It's really awesome. And I think I did a pretty good job of being pretty self-interested the whole time during my recruiting process, at least up until my visit. But I kept my options pretty open, and I wasn't completely dead set on it because I still, obviously I talked to Jack a lot, and I knew West Point was great. I knew it was a fantastic school and had a lot of really great opportunities there, and the wrestling was good. And I believed it was an awesome place, but I wasn't 100% sure if that's where I needed to go yet. And so I was definitely like keeping my options like really, really open, and like trying to see what was out there and trying to, field all these different calls from a handful of different schools. And I wasn't 100% sure where I wanted to go, but I just wasn't, for sure all in on West Point. So I took my first official visit there. It was my first official visit of any school. And I was like, West Point, that's kind of a lock. I can definitely set up an official visit there, because I was still definitely talking to those coaches a lot. I was talking to Coach Ward and, everyone at the time. And so once I get out there and really started seeing the place, and I think once I actually got to hang out with the guys on the team and, stay the night in the barracks and stuff like that, and go see practice and talk to some of the other recruits and see what they were thinking and stuff like that. And I again was pretty much sold by the end of my visit. I verbally committed in Coach Ward's office when I was there on my official visit. But yeah, I was leaving my options like super, super wide open. That was my mindset. I didn't want to just get drug into, going to a school just because my brother was there. I didn't feel like that was like a good enough reason. Not that it's a bad reason to go to a school, but I didn't think it was a good enough reason to just, I didn't want to sell myself short and just go simply because my brother was there. So I tried to leave my options open, but by the end of my visit, I couldn't see myself anywhere else. So I went ahead and verbally committed, got on intermat or whatever it was, and, said that I was committed to Army, and slowly the calls stopped coming in, and I was, happy with my decision, obviously. But yeah, I tried to leave my options like super, super open and everything, but they won me over pretty quickly on that.
Like, I want to leave my options super open, but by the end of the first visit, I was like, "You got me."
Yeah, it was. I know it sounds pretty dumb, but it was a great visit. What can I say? They did it right. They did a good job with it. So
you didn't go on any other visits?
No, I didn't go on any other official visits. That is,
you should have left it open and get some free trips out of it.
I should have. I know. I think in retrospect, maybe I should have, but at the time I was just like, 18 years old. I was like, man, this is it. This is all I ever wanted, and
he knew right away that that was it. That was the best that it was going to get right there.
Yeah, definitely.
So did you choose the other prep school, or was it kind of like your hand was forced, or they want you to go like to have an extra year to prep?
Yeah, I mean, I think my hand was kind of forced. I definitely didn't have like super good test scores to get into West Point and stuff like that. It's possible that, they could have got me in there, just said that I was a super high recruit or something like that. But they kind of told me like the prep school was going to be a lot better option for me. And it really was. And I'm really thankful that they did send me to the prep school. And I'm not 100% sure how big the old coaching staff was on sending guys through the prep school. I'd have to ask around or kind of figure that out. But I know Coach Ward is a huge advocate for sending guys through the prep school. We always have, pretty large prep classes and stuff like that. And I'm not sure whether it has to do with, people's grades coming out of high school or something like that, or whether it's just, the right move for our program. But I know I had a pretty big prep class, and everybody that was in my prep class stayed on the team 4 years and graduated. So it's been working out. I think the same can be said for the class above me. Had a really great prep class, and they stuck together pretty well. All subsequent classes below me have had pretty solid prep classes that have stuck together really well through the program at West Point. So it's been working out for us. But I think that was kind of forced on me, just because I didn't have terribly good test scores coming out of high school and stuff like that. So I definitely needed that year. It was good for me. So I'm glad I did it. That's for sure.
So Jack, you mentioned, before we kind of started the show, your first, kind of diving into first couple of years at West Point, you're going through some adversity, not wrestling that much. I'd like for you to talk about that if you want to for a little bit. Just about some of the struggles you had a little bit, before Will got there, and if you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So coming from, I kind of mentioned it before, coming from 1A Illinois, where I was used to being like the big dog, that was great. But that transition from a small public school in Western Illinois to literally the best college in the United States was really, really difficult for me. I feel like, a lot of guests that have been on here have been like really successful in the room and academically and whatnot. But I mean, frankly, I struggled a lot with both. I struggled a lot wrestling. Just really, it took me to get used to Division I wrestling and the pace and like how you're basically a professional athlete. You're not getting paid or anything like that, but you are a professional athlete. And I definitely, this is years ago, but I definitely was not ready for it. And then academically, I think I had a lot of things that I let mentally block me from achieving things academically. Like I kind of cut corners, and it made it difficult the more I went on. So those first, that plebe and yuck year were pretty difficult. And then even my Cal year, I started getting the hang of it. I bumped up a couple weight classes. So I tried to alleviate some stress there, but even still the classes started getting, I didn't think was possible, more difficult. But
Major.
by the time I was a junior, Will had showed up to the prep school. So that was like, I guess it's kind of cheesy to say, but when he got there, that kind of like, that brought me some comfort knowing that he was close. I could have a release to like go consult him, and not like my family wasn't not there for me. Of course, like my family was always there for me and very supportive, and they came and like visited me when they could. But coming from the middle of nowhere, mom's a teacher, dad's constantly working. Like they can't just come out like every weekend when I'm having a hard time. So for him to be close, that really benefited me a lot, I think, and kind of helped me mentally. But yeah, to kind of answer your question or elaborate on a little bit, I really felt like I didn't give enough to the team then, like those first 3 years. I felt like I had like more to give, and that's kind of what drove me to pursue the AI job. But yeah, those first, it's definitely a struggle. Now, a lot of that was self-inflicted. Is West Point a difficult institution? Absolutely, but it's not unattainable by any means. So to the listeners who think that like West Point's impossible, like this impossible task, it's not. It's really not. Like you're really kind of the driver of your own vehicle, if you will. So like I said, a lot of the things that I were kind of brought on myself, and not knowing how to deal with that level of adversity that I'd never faced before. But I'm really fortunate that I got through it, and really happy that I did, because now I couldn't possibly like consider like going anywhere else to college or pursue a different path than the one I did.
Appreciate you. Yeah, we do. We tend to have very successful wrestlers on here and talk about all the highs of West Point. Partially, you want to talk about that. It's harder to talk about the lows. But it's important, I think, for the listeners to understand like West Point isn't the most fun place when you're going through it.
Right. It's not like super illustrious. Of course, number one leadership institution, and every graduate's a leader of character and this and that, and everybody's like broad-chested, squared off shoulders. But there are folks that struggle for sure. And I don't want everybody to think that I was just like, suffocating the whole time. There were absolutely some times that I thought, like, yes, I'm doing a great job. This is great.
Yeah.
But, there were some times that it was hard.
What's that, Joe?
Oh, go ahead, Will. Go
Yeah,
for it.
well, I would just second that. I think we both had certainly a handful of struggles as we went through our 4 and 5 years for myself. But yeah, there's definitely a heck of a lot of good times too. I think back to like my freshman year after I got here, and I was kind of trying to fight for a spot my freshman year at 149, and unfortunately we had a guy who had won the spot in front of me. He had gotten injured at a dual meet in North Carolina, and then so I kind of got the starting nod after him. And so as a freshman, getting to come out there and start in all these dual meets and travel with the team and go to the conference tournament and things like that and really be the guy, it was a pretty amazing experience too. So that was like one of the big things for me. I was like, man, I can't wait to actually start and be the guy at a certain weight class and have go out for a dual meet and everyone be like, he's our guy. So I was really excited for that opportunity, and that was like, it was one of the coolest things ever. I really couldn't believe I was there at a lot of times when I was a freshman. So there's a lot of really great times, too. I think looking back, and we could talk all day about how fun it is to travel with the team and to go on those trips and things like that. Like it's really a blast. I mean, it's train hard, and like when you're in practice and coach is talking about this and talking about that, and like, oh, we got Lehigh coming up, and oh, that guy's really going to ride hard at 149. He's talking about you. He's talking about, the guy that you're going to have to wrestle. And it's like, it's a pretty cool experience, and so that was really interesting, honestly, to be able to have that and to go through that a lot. And then after my freshman year, I faced a lot of struggles on and off the wrestling mat for sure. And I didn't start again until my senior year. And I was at 165 at that point. So I'd gone up a few weight classes, spent a lot of time out of the spotlight, a lot of time, off the mat even. I think I was off for a semester, my first year, because I had some pretty terrible grades in my plebe year for sure. And so I was ineligible. So I was not even in the room for my first semester of my yuck year. So I had to actually make it back on the team and then work back into, the college room and everything, back onto the program. And I didn't make it back into a starting spot until my senior year, which was last year in second semester. So, there's some tremendous highs, and then there's some, definite low points too. But, it's all good. It all helped me out in the long run. I think I'm actually looking back really thankful for how my career turned out and the things that I went through. They weren't fun by any means, some of those low points, but they're actually really, really good experiences for me because it kind of lit a fire underneath me. It showed me what I needed to do to get back, to the places where I wanted to be. And, thankfully I got there by the end of my senior year. I was able to start for my senior night. And it was awesome, man. It was really, really cool.
Talk about, and both of you guys can kind of hit on this, but you guys both went through quite a bit of adversity, during your time here at West Point and being on the team. Talk a little bit about what got you guys both through that, whether it was each other or the guys on the team or your support system back home, kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I kind of touched on my first few years. Really what got me through that was the guys on the team. of course, support system back home, but they're always there. But the Army wrestling team truly is like the closest knit organization that I've ever been a part of. Even now that I've been in the operational Army for 3 years and I'm in, a force comm unit, this pales in comparison to the brotherhood that I had on the Army wrestling team. And I think that's pretty consistent with a lot of the guests. I think most of the guests kind of touch on even some of the older guys, Phil Simpson and some of those guys, they still talk about how their teammates, their brothers got them through. And that was really what propelled me in my first couple of years. And then my senior year, I felt like I had it figured out. My grades were better. I was really filling out 57. Like I felt like I was wrestling well. And then in October, I had a pretty significant ankle injury. And again, like you remember that, like rehab that back, finally got back on the mat after Christmas break. And then literally like 2 days on the mat, getting ready to wrestle off. Again, I sustained like the same exact injury. And at that point, like that was a really difficult thing for me to deal with. And I remember just like I was on the mat in practice, I just, like knew like this is it, like that's my wrestling career right there. Just it's over. All 15 years or however long it was, gone right then. And so again, just kind of circle back to what I mentioned earlier, the guys on the team like really came to me and really got me through that. And kind of just it's crazy to think about. I haven't thought about it in a while, but to think about like how they kind of just put their arms around me or like, hey man, we understand, like you gave it what you, and all good things come to an end. And I remember like my senior night, I was on crutches and just still like having them not, I guess, I don't want to say shun, but having them still like actively welcoming me. Like, so what, we know you're done, but you have more to offer this team. Like even though you can't wrestle, you still have more to give. And so that was really, really what kind of helped me. Of course, like the coaches too. Coach Ward is a really great mentor of mine, and Coach Joe, and then Chewy was there at the time. That was I think my first year was his last year there. He was really, really really helpful. All those guys. And then, I mean, obviously Will, my brother, but we already mentioned that. He was always the rock, I guess. But yeah, after that, getting through that second injury my senior year, it was kind of the light at the end of the tunnel where I realized like I was really extremely fortunate to be a part of that organization.
Yeah. I mean, I would, echo everything that he just said. That was all, spot on, I guess. Yeah, I think it's this guys on the team that they're everything to an Army wrestler is other Army wrestlers. Right. And, I think back to, my yuck year there where I was off the team and stuff, and I was, not part of the program. So I wasn't coming to practice or anything like that. I was, technically a slug for that time. I didn't have any authos or anything like that. Like it was a dark time for Will Lucie.
Wait, technically
right?
a slug, or were you worse?
No, I was a slug. I was a full.
Okay, I just had to hear that.
What did you do company athletics wise? I don't even know this.
All right. So I
don't think I even know this.
Yeah, I did functional fitness, which was yeah. So it's like CrossFit, basically.
Oh, you zero.
Dude,
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
You pretty much got in better shape your yuck year.
No, I didn't. I absolutely did not. I did not. Well, the only times I was getting in better shape was because Jack was an AI at the time, and I was still like, hey, Coach Ward, is it all right if I come into the room when you guys aren't practicing? And he was like, yeah, whatever, Will. Like, you can go in there and wrestle with your brother. And so I would call Jack, and I'm like, we're trying to find times to wrestle 6 a.m. or something like that before practice or before I had to go to morning formation and stuff like that. Or maybe a few guys on the team would still wrestle with me when they had free time, but obviously it's very tough for them because they're in their own training cycle and, working out with the team and everything like that. So it was difficult, but they still did it. Right. That's to my point. It's those guys were still checking up on me all the time. They still I still sat at the lunch tables with them. Like, it's not like they kicked me out of like the group chat or something. You know, I was still part of the team socially, which was really, really cool. I remember like Jeremiah Imanode, he was in my company and he'd come check on me every night, you know, while I was doing homework or something. CJ Morgan was not in my company and he was in my room like multiple times a week, every week, just checking up on me and saying what's up and, you know, hanging out. You know, obviously all the guys in my class, they were always talking to me and everything like that. But I still had like upperclassmen coming to my room and like checking up on me. Mostly I think a lot of them were like checking up like, hey, Will, are you actually doing your homework right now? Yeah, like I'm actually working on, you know, coming back and everything. But they helped me out, you know, a hell of a lot, I think. You know, they were really, really, really great when it came to that. And then by the time I was a senior, I was able to, you know, help out some of the other guys, some of the younger guys who were struggling with things, you know, guys who were coming back from injuries or having troubles at home and stuff like that. And it was really rewarding experience to have, you know, underclassmen, freshmen or sophomores calling me up and stuff like that and saying, hey, Will, like I'm having struggles with this or I'm having struggles with that. What can I do to help? And it's pretty humbling because again, like I can remember being pretty bad at all the stuff they're asking me about, but I was able to like help them out in, you know, a handful of different ways, or at least I hope I did. Because that was a really rewarding experience to go from the lowest of the lows to being able to help other people get through some of those tough situations. And I think, yeah, it all just goes back to the brotherhood and the love that we have for each other and the love that we have for the program and things like that. It's pretty powerful experiences there.
Appreciate you sharing that. Quick question. Yeah. Did you compete in Brigade Open your year? Wrestling, did you win a Brigade Open championship?
What's that?
Did you win a Brigade Open championship in wrestling yearling year?
No, I didn't. I did not. So they wouldn't let me do combatives or anything because we didn't have like freestyle wrestling as a thing.
You don't have like a wrestling tournament anymore?
No,
They don't do it anymore.
Oh,
otherwise, yes.
He got hurt and then but decided to wrestle in it anyway somehow. I don't know. But he won a Brigade Open championship.
No, I definitely would have. I definitely would have entered that and, you know, tried to get like a slug diamond or whatever they call it. Isn't it called like a slug? When you like win something like that. That's what I would have went for. So I would have had like the core squad A and a slug diamond on my black jacket. Whatever that jacket. That would have been sick. But no, I didn't end up doing that.
Slug diamond.
All right, so let's fast forward. I want to talk about your time as AIs.
Yeah.
This is probably a good time for a listener question. Came in. What's the better AI position, as a wrestling coach or as a tennis coach? I want to hear both of your arguments.
It depends on what you're going for, I think. Because I was like, still was like in the wrestling mode, like, yes, I'm all about wrestling. This is what I want to do. So I really enjoyed, I would advocate for the wrestling job. But I don't know. I don't think tennis keeps you too busy.
Well, you know, you can say that, but I definitely put in a pretty long day today. I mean, we're going on north of 12 hours right now just for today. First day back from Labor Day, right? So I've been working my tail off.
Wait, so what did you do for 12 hours today? I want to hear walk us through your day today.
Yeah, so it wakes
Day
up.
in the life of an AI after Labor
Wakes up with a nice warm cup of coffee on my porch, watch TV a little bit, you know, take a shower, head into work about 9 o'clock, you know, walk some recruits around for a while, go eat a free lunch at the O Club, walk some recruits around for a little longer, maybe go watch.
When did you start work?
Yeah, no, it's a super easy day. I think I came in at 9 today. Like, it's not hard at all.
Well, you came in
Totally
and
joking.
Start working there. I'm not hearing about any work yet.
Yeah, no, it's not hard at all. I was completely joking. It's super easy job. I mean, I do miss the wrestling program a lot because like it's tough to find time to go down and wrestle with the guys, which is really annoying because I'm, you know, half a mile from the wrestling room right now. But no, I mean it's an easy life up here. The coaches are great. They treat me really well. I don't know. It's fun, but yeah, I think the wrestling job is still the number one pick for me. So I think Jack won on that end.
I will say this. Will has gotten more compliments as an AI for tennis than Jack did when he was an AI for wrestling.
That's
They talk up Will quite a bit down at the tennis program.
Who's they? What? You
Yeah, but
never
so
talked to
who
tennis
would
people.
hold up? You are the wrestling program, so you would have to talk to yourself about how Jack's doing. Now you have someone externally in tennis to talk to. Like, so how can you compare it?
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. That's an excellent point. Go ahead, Joe. I'm eager to hear this.
Jack's claim to fame is he repainted a part of the office and he put together the bikes. So
Imagine, put yourself in the place. What if those assault bikes never got assembled, Joe? Where would we be as a program? You got to think. Second and third.
Coach Ward does get a lot of use out of those bikes, so he should be thanking you every time.
I promise you he doesn't.
You get a tag on Instagram every time he's on the bike.
Yes.
Just every day.
Yes. I'm going to let him know that.
What do you guys got before we get into listener questions? Because we probably have another hour of listener questions coming up.
I got nothing. I'm ready for these listener questions.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that much, but we do have like 8 or 9 questions. Bobby asks, why is your dad so much cooler than both of you? So I guess let's hear about your dad a little bit, because a couple of these revolve around like your dad's the man and you guys suck. It's pretty much the moral of these questions.
I think I could give you an unbiased perspective on Steve Lucie. He is by far the toughest Lucie out of the bunch, without a doubt. Maybe Jennifer. Actually, Jennifer might.
I was gonna say that implies that he's tougher than both Emily and Jennifer, which is my sister and mom, respectively.
Your mom's pretty tough. Jennifer's pretty tough. But Steve Lucie is like the manliest man you've ever seen in your entire life.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so my dad is like the typical like guy's guy, like just masculinity, like dude, because he's a farmer, right? That's his only job. Like he doesn't have some side job, and then like, or he doesn't have like a main job and like farming on the side. Like all he does is farm. All right. He's his own boss. He just goes out and works all day with his hands and everything. He's got this like big old beard, bald head, and, he's working out all the time. He's like really active on Instagram and stuff. And so he's always posting pictures of him like, working out or out on the farm doing something. He's driving around with like his dogs in the back of a gator and stuff like that, or he's out chopping wood or wrestling cattle or something like that. So everyone gets this idea that he's just like the toughest dude that's ever, walked the earth and everything.
Sounds pretty tough.
He's pretty tough.
He sounds awesome, and he's pretty tough guy, no doubt. But I think everyone just like sees his Instagram and they're just like, wow, Steve Lucie, so much tougher than Jack and Will. And
so it sounds like Steve's posting the highlights on Instagram. He's not posting the lowlights.
That's right. He's building his brand, okay? And people forget that Will and I, all the stuff Dad does on his Instagram, Will and I grew up doing. It was just before Instagram. So really, we were doing that before it was cool. And I know, Dad, I know you're going to listen to this episode. So so Bobby, Will and I have been doing this long before you could even think of.
No, so like my dad is by far like the favorite out of all of us, like especially to everyone in my class. Like when we did like this graduation trip this summer, and we like they all like came to my house and saw my parents and like they saw the farm and they saw my dad and everything. They're always like so excited. Like every time my dad comes to town or whenever they get to see him, like he's easily like their favorite. They all love hanging out with my dad and everything like that. They think it's the funniest thing ever.
I will say, to Dad's credit, he is objectively like a funny guy. Like every time we go out, I always laugh because he does say things like he does try to be funny every now and then, but the majority of the times I laugh at him are because he's unintentionally being funny. He's just being Steve, and it's pretty enjoyable, really.
All right, Lane Peters asked, well, actually, I should probably stay on the topic with your dad. Max Weisman says, I follow their father on Instagram. He's a beast. Can he take both of you guys in a fight together?
No,
if it was
never
Will and I
wrestled
together, no. Yeah, Dad never wrestled.
He never wrestled a day in his life. He wouldn't know the first thing to do. He's still like 50 something years old now. Like, I think we got him.
If Max is asking if Will and I were together, like 2-on-1, it's gonna be a pretty substantial loan for that hospital bill for Dad. But there is a credit to like Dad's strength. If it was just 1-on-1, like me and Dad, and then after that Will and Dad, I think it would be a lot closer. Just because I don't know how to explain it. He's just.
I think he's tougher than both of you, so I think he's got it. He'll just rope-a-dope you guys both to death, and then it'll be game over. I don't think you can knock Steve Lucie out. That's what I'm saying. I don't think you can take him.
All right, Joe. I don't want to hear Joe talking, because I've met Joe's dad too, and Coach Joe's dad is no joke. He is a tough SOB too. So I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, little pot calling the kettle black there, huh, Joe?
Yeah.
Well,
Really cooler than you.
yeah, I guess that's fair. My dad's pretty tough. Although, no, I won't say anything because he'll actually take offense.
All right, so next question. This is coming from Lane Peters.
Mm.
Will and Jack step on the line and smack hands. What happens next?
What year is it?
There's going to be blood on the mat.
Present day.
There's going to be blood on the mat for sure.
Blood on the mat. It'll probably start with Will clubbing me as hard as he could, because his hands and forearms are a lot bigger and stronger than mine. So he'll probably club me right out of the chute, and my eyeballs will then fall on the ground, and I'll have to put them back in my head. And by that time, he's probably glass doubled me into the wall. I haven't in a long time, so if it's present day now, I think Will would probably take me, and that takes a lot of, I think, intestinal fortitude to be able to admit that to our however many listeners that my brother would probably beat me. But if it's 2016, it's all over for Will.
That was before he got into functional fitness as a yearling. So
yeah.
Good point.
Really, that was the turning point. After Will's functional fitness stint, it's been all downhill for me.
Okay, so Jonathan Minnis asks, how do you survive Coach Minnis in high school?
Coach Minnis, man, that guy, it was a challenge, because me and Jack were knuckleheads mostly, but man, he ran some tough freaking workouts. Yeah. We had some grind matches in that high school room. He would put us through everything we wanted and then some. I mean, it was insane. Like we both kind of like not really badmouthed our high school program and everything, because I don't think we meant it like that, but we came from like a small program. We didn't fill out a whole lineup, right? So we didn't have like a lot of guys, and we didn't have a whole lot of guys who were like going to state and getting medals and stuff like that. By about the state tournament, it was typically, either Jack and I were both still going. We both got, medals every year at state, and maybe Jack did in his freshman year, but we were always like going deep into the postseason, and there weren't a whole lot of other guys that were, still going at that point. But he was training us like we were Division I athletes at that time. Like, he was putting us through these crazy workouts, and he was also our strength coach too. Like, he had a gym when we were in high school, and we would go to his gym, especially in the summers and stuff. And he would be putting us through these crazy workouts like we were in a D1 room all the time. And that's when we really started to get really, really good. So I don't know how we survived it, honestly, but I'm glad we did, because he put us in a good spot. That's for sure.
So he used to be in the Navy. He was Navy Combat Search and Rescue. And that man, he had some stories, but he was a stud. He pushed us really hard, and he grew up in Iowa, like watching, Iowa wrestling and stuff back in like the 90s when they were like really, really good. And man, he definitely pushed us hard, but that was really kind of where I learned like the grit, I guess, like what it really takes to be like that, like good. Because he would ask us, like, I remember we would like be in the room, and he would ask us, like, do you really expect to wrestle in college acting like this? And I guess it just took like a moment of reflection, like, ooh, maybe I'm not cut out for that. And then he did a really good job of pushing us further. So That's crazy that he asked you a question. That's funny.
Sam Ruda asks, who's better looking?
Oh, me for sure.
Absolutely not. No. It's got to be me. I don't know. It depends on what your style is. I think
If we're going by the pictures I put on our Instagram story, like to promote, to ask questions.
Yeah.
I pulled Will's off the internet, but Jack made sure to text me the picture that put up for him. He's like, "Hey, use this picture."
Oh, wow.
Come on, Brian.
Wow. Wow.
Because my roster picture is terrible. My roster picture is from when I was a plebe or yuck. It is bad. Like it
You
is.
probably photoshopped the one you sent me too.
Brian, now you know what?
He's got all those apps that all those girls have to touch up the pictures and stuff.
Like Steve, like my dad, you got to create your brand. You got to promote your brand. My is looking better than Will, because that's about the only thing I can know for sure that I'm better at Will than.
Oh, that's a good.
Last question. Lincoln Mallinger asked, at what point did you guys both realize Emily was the most athletic and smartest sibling?
Yeah, that's a good question, Lincoln. I think that happened for me when, Emily got to college, and I'm at West Point struggling to stay afloat and struggling to pass my classes. And Emily makes it through her first year, and she's got like a 4 something GPA. She's just killing it in everything she does. And she's like, she wasn't like recruited for track and cross country. She did that in high school and stuff, but she didn't go to college to run track and cross country. And then she just says to me one day, she's like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna walk onto the track and cross country team. I don't know, I'm kind of bored with everything here." And I was like, and then she goes ahead and does it, and she's still on the track and cross country team now at Cornell College. And that point, it kind of clicked to me, like, wow, Emily is so much better than me and Jack at doing right now. She's just like killing everything. She's like, there's nothing she's not good at. Like she would have been an amazing cadet. She would have done everything she wanted at West Point. She just decided not to come here. I was like, oh man, she's a lot better than both of us. That's when it was for me, anyways.
Yeah, that was a pretty tough reality when she let us know. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna walk on to this team. I was like, oh, that's great. Like, give it a try. And then literally like a week later, she's like, "Yep, I'm on the team now." I was like, oh, well, okay, it's going a lot easier for you than it is for me, but good for you. No, she's great. Emily's a superstar.
So Joe, do you got any last minute questions?
I guess the last question that I have is, there was a story about a football jersey, and I just wanted to know who won that fight there. There's a football jersey that you two had to share, or there was one that actually fit, and you guys were both fighting over it. And this was in high school, maybe?
Yeah.
Who won? I was just wondering real quick, who won that? Because that's probably a pretty good indication of.
I will literally never forget this.
Steve Lucie won that fight.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he won that fight. Me and Jack were fighting with each other. So we started it, and he came in and finished it. So I think me and Jack are gonna probably leave it at that. My dad came in, he finished that fight, and I don't remember who got that jersey. I don't remember who won that football game that day, but I know my dad won that fight.
I remember that was the last year of my life I played competitive football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's your answer on out of the three of you, who's tougher.
Yeah, maybe it is. Oh,
all right. So last question when we ask everybody, now that we've done the episode with you guys, who would you recommend next for the show?
Oh man. That's a good one. I don't, there's a lot of like, obviously like really great like Army wrestlers throughout the years. Have you, I guess one of my old teammates, have you had Javi Rodriguez on the team yet, on the show yet?
No, we haven't.
So he's a class of 2016 guy. He has a really, really interesting story. That is one gritty dude, really gritty dude, infantry officer, like deployed with the 82nd, like really like tough dude when really a pretty good friend of mine when I was in college. So I would recommend getting him on the show. He's got a pretty good story to tell.
Yeah, I need to reach out. I was at Bragg for a while, and he got there. And I remember he was a team captain, and I reached out. He like was doing a bunch of training exercises and then deployed, so I never got to we never linked up. But I need to hit him up. I need to get him on.
Yeah, Javi would be a good one.
Yeah, I would say have you had Jeremiah and Samson Imanote on together?
No. I think honestly with their personalities that we should probably they each need their own episode.
Yeah.
I've reached out to Samson. He's the only one who's denied me.
What?
Everybody I've asked, other than Colonel Cook, he's denied me ferociously.
Yeah.
If I even text him about it, he just won't text me back. He's not even a no. He just goes straight salad. But Samson's like, nah, I'm good. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
No, but I think he was just busy and he wanted to like wait until like some things like came to fruition that he was working on. Before he wanted to like come on here and talk about stuff. So
no,
I would back out to him because he probably listened to this like B-Rose talking smack on me. I don't even know that.
Yeah, I would definitely say the Imanote brothers are going to be an awesome episode. And aside from that, I don't think you've had Dave Russell on there, have you?
No.
I think Dave Russell would be a really, really cool story. He's another guy, super, super gritty. He was a combat diver. I know he's got like a lot of good stories from that whole process and stuff. He's like pretty good friends with Alex Dahl and all the combat divers and all that. So he's a super good guy and he's got a pretty gritty story himself. So Dave Russell would be a good one, I think, too.
Awesome. I'll jot these ones down. These are definite good ones. We're a little backed up. We've got a bunch of people lined up here, not necessarily in a particular order, but And the list always continues because people ask, oh, we got this, and then it's like next thing you know, you're backed up for the next month. Even you guys were supposed to do it last week, and then Coach Barbie was like, "Hey, I can come on next week, man." He doesn't really sound like that, but he kind of does. So we had to push you guys, but yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys hopping on. This was a lot of fun. I think we kept it right around an hour or so. So yeah. I was thinking, man, we're gonna be talking for like 2 hours, so that's what I feel like.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for having us, man. I really, really appreciate it. I'm happy to share kind of I guess what I consider to be a unique story between Will and I. So again, thanks a lot, Coach Joe. Thanks a lot. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, for sure. I love co-hosting anytime.
Yeah, I was telling Joe at CJ's golf outing. I was like, yeah, I'm at the Lucie Brothers. I think I mentioned like, oh yeah, I'm like struggling to find co-hosts. And Joe's like, I'll do it whenever you want. I was like, you're hired.
That's awesome.
Not you're struggling, but like a lot of people are busy. It's just like it's hard to get. So much prep work goes into this. It's like,
oh yeah,
yes,
hours and hours and hours.
Yeah. Big production value. Understand? Big podcast. Be up there with Joe Rogan here pretty soon, so that's important.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys hopping on.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
I'm going, guys.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to the BHAW Radio Show. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. If there's something you'd like to hear on a future show, reach out to us on any of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Or you can reach us at email, bhaw.radio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, go Army, be Navy.